Representative Tokuda just cornered Pete Hegseth with the question every American should hear. Would you order our military to shoot at their fellow countrymen if ordered by the president? His evasive non-answer and desperate deflection to false hypotheticals reveals everything about blind. Loyalty versus constitutional duty. This isn't theoretical, it's happening now.
Here now recognizes the gentlelady from Hawaii, Ms. Tokuda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I agree we've had many performances today, but what we'd like is some answers. Mr. Secretary, did you invite Elon Musk for a briefing on war plans with China to the Pentagon? Yes or no is simple.
There's been a lot of hyperbole and incorrect reporting around that situation, but we did invite Elon over to come talk to us generally, but there was no war plans being discussed.
Okay, so whose idea was it to invite him to the Pentagon for a briefing? You mentioned you served at the pleasure of the president. Was it the president's will to have him come and be briefed?
Well, as you know, at that time, Elon Musk was leading up DOGE efforts, and we've taken a great investment in DOGE at DOD, and so getting his input on how we make DOD more efficient makes a great deal of sense.
Okay, but don't you think it's a conflict of interest for the world's richest man? Many of the contracts that the DOD is engaged in, billions of dollars of contracts going to his company, and he is, as to your point, was leading DOGE, which was involved in cutting hundreds of contracts, but also becoming intimately aware of the platforms and the requirements that would be given out for new contracts. Did you not think it was a conflict of interest to invite someone with financial interests into the Pentagon to have firsthand knowledge of what they could then bid on for their own, enrichment?
Ma'am, it was just an informal discussion, but I'll tell you, anyone that knows our Defense Department knows we show no preference to any company other than what your capabilities are, and we're grateful for the places where his companies benefit our national defense.
So for a $280 million donation, the world's richest man with companies intimately linked and involved in billion-dollar contracts with the Department of Defense gain access into the Pentagon. So would you say that any company right now that has multi-billion-dollar contracts with the Department of Defense has access to the Pentagon right now? 1-hour briefings with you personally?
On the regular basis, I meet with many people and many different companies and many different aspects of our defense industrial base to ensure we have the best possible capabilities. It would be imprudent to do otherwise.
I'm sure for an investment of $280 million, Elon's investors are quite happy that it's come out into the billions. I want to jump questions right now. Mr. Secretary, on January 6, 2021, rioters and looters attacked federal law enforcement officials, vandalized and destroyed federal government property, and caused an estimated $2.7 billion in damages right here at the Capitol. Would you have sent the National Guard and the Marines in on that day?
Well, unfortunately, President Trump requested the National Guard in advance, and that was...
It took him quite a long time. I'm asking you, as Secretary of Defense, would you have sent in the National Guard and the Marines on that day? We had 140 Capitol Police officers injured. One died the next day. Would you have sent in the National Guard and the Marines?
As I said, President Trump directed National Guard to be there in advance.
And I think you can look at the record of how long it actually took for him to actually send them in. But it's good to hear that it sounds like you would have sent in the National Guard and the Marines on that day in which the insurrection was taking place right here at the Capitol. Mr. Secretary, during your confirmation hearing, you failed to deny the conclusion that you would carry out an order to shoot protesters in the legs. So let me be direct. Given what we are seeing across the country right now, would you carry out or issue an order by the president for our military to fire upon protesters actively engaging in their civil right to exercise free speech, their First Amendment rights? Would you give that order from the president?
I assume you're insinuating what's going on in Los Angeles, and I wouldn't call
Not just
that a
Los
peaceful
Angeles.
protest.
If we take a look at protests throughout the country, it's a simple question. If directed by the president, would you order our military to fire upon protesters? Simple yes or no.
Ma'am, we have, as you know, and as this committee knows, we have standard rules of engagement that are in place that give guidance to our troops, and they abide by them.
I'm asking what you would do. Again, you said you serve at the pleasure of the president. Is that not true?
I do serve at the pleasure.
So if the president told you to shoot people in the legs, would you do so? Now, you failed to answer this question as well in your confirmation hearing when asked by members of the Senate.
Because I refuse to accept a false hypothetical that's attempting to put me in a corner and make it look like a
At
representation.
a time when we have more Marines and National Guard in Los Angeles than we do in Syria and Iran alone, I don't think this is a hypothetical. This is an actual situation that we are dealing with right now. So again, I will ask the question, the last 14 seconds I have, would you order our military to shoot at their fellow countrymen if ordered by the president?
I think it's interesting that for 4 years, insurrection was the left's favorite
I think we know your
word,
answer. Thank you, Mr.
and
Chair.
that
I
when
yield
it's
back.
invoked in L.A., they were
Gentlelady yields back. Gentlelady's time's expired.
What Representative Tokuda exposed in that hearing room wasn't just evasion, it was a live demonstration of how democratic guardrails crumble when officials prioritize personal loyalty over constitutional oath. Her question cut straight to the foundational principle that separates constitutional democracy from authoritarianism, whether the military serves the Constitution or serves one person. The legal framework here is crystal clear. The Posse Comitatus Act explicitly prohibits using federal military forces for domestic law enforcement except in very specific circumstances, when Hegseth repeatedly deflected with rules of engagement and false hypotheticals. He was avoiding a simple constitutional reality. No president has the authority to order troops to fire on peaceful protesters, and no defense secretary should equivocate about refusing such an order. Tokuda's persistence revealed something more dangerous than just one nominee's evasion. She exposed a pattern where officials use procedural language to avoid clear moral and legal boundaries. When someone who seeks to control the world's most powerful military cannot give a straight no to shooting protesters, that's not political theater, that's a preview of authoritarian governance. The timing makes this exchange even more chilling. As Tokuda noted, we currently have more National Guard troops deployed in Los Angeles than in Syria and Iran combined. This isn't theoretical policy discussion. It's happening in real time. When domestic deployment becomes normalized, and when officials won't clearly reject orders to use force against citizens, you're witnessing the infrastructure of oppression being assembled piece by piece. Hegseth's final deflection, calling insurrection the left, revealed the real danger. Instead of defending constitutional principles, he immediately pivoted to partisan framing. That's exactly how militaries become political weapons. When leaders view fellow citizens as enemies rather than people they've sworn to protect, the stakes extend far beyond one confirmation and hearing. Military culture depends on clear command structures, but it also depends on officers who understand their ultimate loyalty is to constitutional principles, not personal relationships. When that line blurs, entire institutions hollow out from within. Career officers start calculating political angles instead of following legal obligations. Chain of command becomes chain of personal favor. This institutional decay has measurable consequences. When military leadership becomes politicized, operational effectiveness suffers. Troops lose trust in their commanders when they perceive orders as politically motivated rather than strategically sound. Intelligence gets filtered through political lenses. International allies begin questioning American military reliability when they see domestic deployment used for political purposes rather than genuine security threats. The Elon Musk briefing Tokuda also exposed demonstrates how this corruption spreads. When the world's richest defense contractor gets special Pentagon access after political donations, it signals that influence is for sale. Career defense officials see this preferential treatment and understand the new rules. Political loyalty and financial power matter more than expertise or ethical guidelines. The $280 million investment Tokuda referenced isn't just about one billionaire's access. It's about systematically corrupting the relationship between public service and private profit. What should deeply concern every American is how this pattern connects to broader institutional capture. We're watching real-time demonstration of how democracies die, not through dramatic coups, but through the steady erosion of people willing to say no to illegal orders. When nominees can't clearly state, They won't shoot protesters. They're signaling that all boundaries are negotiable. History shows us where this leads. Democratic institutions don't collapse overnight. They're gradually repurposed by people who understand how to exploit procedural ambiguity. Every evasive answer, every hypothetical deflection, every partisan reframing normalizes the abnormal. What starts as refusing to answer clear questions about constitutional limits ends with those limits no longer existing in practice. Representative Tokuda's questioning matters because it forced this choice into the open. She didn't accept deflection or procedural excuses. She demanded clarity on the most basic question of constitutional governance. Will you follow illegal orders? Hegseth's non-answer was itself the answer. And that should terrify anyone who understands how quickly institutions can transform from protectors of democracy into instruments of control. The solution requires civic vigilance that goes beyond electoral politics. Contact your representatives and demand they extract clear commitments about constitutional limits from nominees. Support organizations that defend military professionals who refuse illegal orders. Most importantly, refuse to accept hypothetical as an answer when officials are asked about fundamental constitutional principles. Democracy survives only when citizens insist that their representatives answer the hard questions clearly, especially when those answers determine whether our military protects the Constitution or abandons it.